Welcome to a recap of episode 9 of the challenge Ride or Dies. All right, now before we talk about this week, and very interesting episode it was, but before we talk about this episode, let's just as a quick reminder talk about last week. We lost Jay and Michelle. Man, I was cheered for those two, but they just created some bad blood they couldn't ever recover from. Jay and Michelle have gone home, but on the other hand, Horatio and Olivia have survived another elimination challenge. They're still alive in the house. Props to them. I gotta say, I always tend to cheer on an underdog. I think they're the only two newbie team left, duo left, and they've won so many. They got a huge target on their back, but the fact that they're still playing the game, I'm just cheering for those guys. It's a lot of fun to watch them win yet again, as much as I hated to lose Jay and Michelle. So there you go. We are now down to 16 people left. It's still a bunch of people, right? But that's only 8 duos. So you can think of it that way. We're what, maybe halfway there. So 16 people left. So what are the repercussions of last week in the evictions we saw? Well, Nelson is happy. Do you remember? Nelson had to make a decision basically to save Olivia, which is his little showmance, flirtmance. It could be a little more than that this season, or save his bromance with Faisal. They had drawn the safety dagger, so he had to protect one or the other. He chose to protect Faisal. And Nelson seems very happy because Olivia survived Olivia and Horatio. He probably cares about Horatio, but I have a feeling he cares a lot more about Olivia. Nelson is happy that he protected his relationship with Faisal, that Olivia is still around. And Olivia seems okay with it. She's saying, yeah, it made more sense for him to do what he did. I understand it. I'm not holding it against him since I came back. You know, we're good. I got to say, this is the second time that Olivia has very much seemed to put the emotions aside and focus just on game strategy, gameplay. She's playing a heck of a game. I continue to I underestimated her at the very beginning. No more. She's playing a great game. So Nelson's very happy. Doesn't seem like there's any huge repercussions with Olivia for what happened. And obviously he and Faisal now are like this, just a little bit more, right? So we've got that. Now, talking about happy, Faisal himself seems pretty happy that Nelson came through for him. As you recall, a few seasons back, Faisal kind of did Nelson a little dirty. He's still trying to make up for it, and certainly happy that Nelson watched out for him as well. So Faisal's happy about that. But he's also, it's got to be stressful in that house. And Faisal, I think he's just finally had enough. He sees other people making all these big moves and everything. Maybe it's the fact that he knew his game was potentially on the line this last episode. Even though he is saved, he knew it could have gone the other way because he's just feeling down. He's right there on the edge of tears, unhappy that he feels like he's just this close, but is just not, hasn't done what he needs to do to win yet. Just doesn't think he's quite there, and very unhappy about that. His duo, Mariah, is really trying to cheer him up and doing everything she can to tell him to hold his head up. You know, I've made fun of Faisal before, the fact that he doesn't do so well at eating challenges. Before he wins one of these things, I want to see him conquer that Achilles heel and do a final that involves some eating and all that. But beyond that, he's a beast out there. Everyone always, you're your own worst critic, and I think Faisal's doing that right now. But she's certainly doing what she can to get him cheered up. Meanwhile, Bananas feeling pretty good about his partner, Nani. We hear a little discussion about the fact that how much he wants her to do well, how much he wants her to win this season, that he can be a part of that. But he's telling Nani, saying, you know, I'm really not sure what exactly is going on here, that I feel like we're not really the targets. I think he says at one point, by this time in every other season, I had all kinds of people mad at me. Hadn't really happened this season. So they're feeling pretty good about their position in the game as well. As are Casey and Kenny, brother, sister, tightest duos, right? I mean, you would think so. I think that's the case with them. They're both very happy that they've got each other, where they're at in the game. They haven't really had people going after them yet. So they're also feeling pretty comfortable. And a few others feeling okay. We've got Tori and Jordan talking a little bit. Of course, things can change even in the course of an episode. Foreshadowing, because we got Tori and Jordan talking about how much they've enjoyed reconnecting with each other. Tori saying, I hadn't seen Jordan a year and a half. It's just been great wrestling with them, reconnecting, hanging out with each other, and all of that. More to happen? Well, you would think so, until you see the next little bit of discussion, which happens to be Nuris talking a little bit, saying that she also feels a little something special with Jordan. She also feels a little extra attraction, and that there could be a little makeout that's been occurring between the two of them so far. Now, Olivia had a good point. She told Nuris, she said, look, I don't know exactly what's going on with Tori and Jordan. You know, they kind of are saying they're a done deal, but she's saying you got to realize that if Tori has any kind of feelings for Jordan still, and you make a move on him, she's going to kick you to the curb. Whether she's actually interested or not, she's going to kick you to the curb. So sorry about that. So you need to be aware of that, Nuris. So Nuris has been warned by Olivia. I don't think Nuris really cares, because again, there's a lot of cuddling that takes place the rest of the episode between Nuris and Jordan. So Nuris and Jordan, very tight. Tori and Jordan, yeah, maybe not so much. We'll see how that all pans out. So we've got that. A lot of relationships, a lot of people talking about their duos and how comfortable they feel with each other, right? It's got to be a little foreshadowing. Of course, it's foreshadowing. We're going to find out what happens as we get a little bit further, deeper into the episode. So let's talk about the challenge itself that takes place today. This is a good one. TJ refers to it as a mini final. He says this isn't a full-blown deal, but if you can't finish this one, if you can't complete this one, then sure as heck don't have any business being in my final. It's going to be a 6-mile course. Forget any challenges, checkpoints, anything. Just when TJ says it's a 6-mile course, if I'm out there, I'm already going, oh, geez, this is going to be horrible. This is going to be horrific. Yeah, no, he's got extras built into this one. It's a mini final, 6-mile course. There's going to be multiple checkpoints, basically 3 main checkpoints throughout the course of the 6-mile race. The duos are going to be competing as a team, as you would expect. As they run the 6 miles, they're also going to be carrying a heavy plank between them. Looks like a stretcher, but it must be concrete or something in the middle, because it looks like it's very heavy anyway. And the whole thing is called Haul or Nothing. So yeah, there'll be a little hauling as well on this play, because we're going to find out. Now, here's the thing. TJ gives us a little teaser. The winner gets to make the biggest decision of the season. So it's not necessarily just the winner picking 4 couples, 4 duos to bring in for deliberation, deciding who competes in the elimination arena. Now, TJ's saying, now this power is a lot more than that. This is, you're going to want this power. Trust me, you're going to want this power. Now they got me intrigued. So how does things start? Well, as soon as the horn blows, everyone takes off running. I think it's Anissa that says, everyone's going to want to be at first, but I'm going to laugh as they're all ahead, and eventually we'll pass them somewhere down the road. Yeah, maybe not, because Anissa and Jordan certainly are starting off very far behind. On the other hand, is Faisal and Mariah that are really ahead of everyone else. Faisal talks a little bit about, says, I know people say don't burn yourself out, and it doesn't matter where you are at the very beginning. He says, but I want to make sure that everyone knows that we're in it to win it, that we're leading this thing. We're going to lead it from start to finish. So he really wants this particular victory. So they reach the first checkpoint. And of course, Faisal and Mariah get there first. So the first checkpoint, you have to use your plank along with 3 barrels, pretty big barrels. I guess they're regular sized barrels, but 3 barrels. You have to use the 3 barrels and a plank to move across a field, probably 50 yards or so long, without touching the ground. So somehow walk across the barrels, use the plank as a walkway from one to the other, roll the barrels in front, do whatever you can to get from one side to the other without touching the field itself. Now, everyone in terms of strategy is basically using the same strategy. They've got the barrels on end, setting the planks on top, walking to the far barrel, and then turning around and very carefully grabbing the barrel at the back, rolling it along to the side, resetting it up in front of them, repeat the process. How long does it take to get 40 or 50 yards with barrels? It's a long process. But everyone is doing that except for Johnny and Bananas, who actually had an idea that I thought of as well. I was wondering if it'd work. Instead of setting the barrels on the side, on the top, could you set them on the side, put the plank on top, roll the barrels a little bit, move your plank, grab the I don't know, somehow grab all the barrels, just keep rolling them, put the planks on top, and make your way across. So you don't have to take every barrel and move it all the way around to the start each time you need to make a new step. Seemed like a decent idea to me, and it seemed like a decent idea to Bananas. It just didn't work in the way Bananas envisioned. He and Nani just can't make it work. They basically end up close to last place as a result of it, because the barrels just aren't rolling the way they want them to. As it turns out, even though Faisal and Mariah started off in first place, excuse me, guys, it's actually Nelson and Nuris who finished this thing first. They win the first checkpoint. They get across. They just flew on those barrels. They were moving them as quick as they could. But Faisal and Mariah are right behind them. We're talking a couple of minutes distance when they're running to the next checkpoint. So it's close for these two. Anissa, Jordan, Bananas, and Nani, maybe not so much. All right, so the next challenge or next checkpoint they have to do now that they've completed this, they have to load their planks with a bunch of sandbags, 4 sandbags in particular. They didn't say how heavy they are, but they look like they're 25, 30 pounds, maybe something like that each. And they have to carry these 4 sandbags on their planks to the next checkpoint. And it turns out that the checkpoint number 2, every duo has a sled. And this sled has to be pulled across another field. Now, we'll call it 40 or 50 yards. And it's already has some cubes, some boxes inside this sled that we'll talk about in a second. But remember those sandbags that the duos are carrying? This is their opportunity to sabotage other teams, because you can take those 4 sandbags and put them on someone else's sled, which makes it just that much tougher to pull your sled across the field. Now, once you've pulled your sled across the field, you then take those 4 cubes that I mentioned that were already in the sled, and these cubes have different pictures on every side, a sword, a shield, stars, things like that. You have to stack these cubes on top of each other in such a manner that every side of the column you've created has 4 different graphics on each of the 4 cubes. So it's a little bit of a logical puzzle that you have to do. So it's a 2-part challenge on this part. So pull your sled across, then stack the cubes to finish up. And it certainly seems like stacking of the cubes is the toughest part of this particular checkpoint challenge. Now, in terms of sabotage, we won't go through all of it, but Nelson and Nuris are there first. They've sabotaged Bananas and Nani with a couple of sandbags, and they've sabotaged Amber and Chauncey with a couple of sandbags as well. I was a little surprised to see Nelson sabotaging Amber and Chauncey. I mean, I know that they aren't as great as they started off. I still thought he'd kind of throw her a bone a little bit or something, but they threw a couple of sandbags on Amber and Chauncey's as well. So I guess any connections those two have is gone. But they've done that. Faisal and Mariah, they put all 4 of theirs on Tori and Devin because they see Tori and Devin are right behind them. They know they're fantastic at solving puzzles, so they want to put as much distance between them as and everyone else. So everyone starts pulling their sleds across. For most people, getting these cubes lined up the way it needs to be lined up is not the easiest thing in the world. But I got to say, for Faisal and Mariah, they made it look easy. It didn't. And now we don't know with editing and all that just how long it took, but it doesn't look like it took long at all. And Devin is shocked. He said, how in the heck did Faisal solve this thing in 15 seconds, a minute, something like that? Because they have solved it. They're the first ones to solve the puzzle. They're gone. They're heading to the next checkpoint. We've got Devin and Tori. We knew they were going to be strong puzzle solvers, right? That's why they were sabotaged with the sandbags. And sure enough, they finished the puzzle up next. They're right behind, and then behind that, Nelson and Nuris. So here's our top 3 onto the third and final checkpoint. And way behind, Nani and Bananas. They had problems with the barrels. They're okay with the sled here, but they're having problems solving this cube as well. They've basically given up. Now, other people give up, and they catch a lot of grief, right? No one wants to see anyone quit. These two, I guess because they've got enough vet status, people give them a little bit of a break because they're not trying. They're not trying at all. They know they're not going to win this thing. So they're starting to have a little fun with it. All right, so let's talk about checkpoint number 3, the final checkpoint in this little mini finale or mini final. Checkpoint 3, you've got to take 6 tires, each with the name of some international city on it, put it on a plank, and carry it to the next point a little bit further down the road. There, you have to take these 6 tires, throw them up and over a storage container. Once you've done that, then you have to stack the 6 tires Remember, each tower has the name of a city on it. Stack it in order from the southernmost city all the way up to the northernmost city. Faisal does pretty well with this. He tells a little story. He's competed in Reykjavik a couple of seasons back, so he knows that's way to the north. He apparently DM'd a girl, talked to a girl in Sydney, so he looked it up. He knows Sydney's way down to the south. They figure out where the different cities are, top to bottom. They solve the puzzle pretty quickly. In fact, Tori and Devin show up, and Faisal and Moriah have already solved it, already moved on. They're shocked. Sorry, guys. A little bit of a cough there. All right, so Faisal and Moriah certainly have solved it, moved on, and it turns out just around the corner is the final finish line. Faisal and Moriah have won the challenge itself. So Faisal and Moriah have won the mini final. Some teams that aren't too happy about it. Some teams take it in stride. Tori and Devin take it in stride. Johnny, Bananas and Nani take it in stride. Horatio and Olivia, not so much. Horatio in particular, I think. Talk about stress. We talked about Faisal already feeling a little stressed out. I think Horatio's the same thing. I'm sure he's feeling like he's competed in way too many elimination competitions. He didn't want to have to compete in another one. He's upset. We saw a little bickering between him and Olivia about carrying these planks throughout the challenge. At this point, once they realized, I guess a horn must have blown. Someone said, yeah, it's over. Don't keep on trying. They don't wait for everyone to finish. At that point, you either win or you don't. So he drops the planks. He walks off. He's very upset. Olivia's upset with Horatio that he's not throwing her more support, that he's just walked off and basically abandoned her in the middle of a dusty road. So these two have gotten along well. They've played well together. That may not be the case going forward, but it may not matter because now we're finding out what this huge advantage, what this huge power that Faisal and Moriah have. And it turns out that we've got a huge change in the game because ride or die duos are no more. No, TJ says, hey, you rode this far, but the journey ends right here. Instead of ride or die duos like we've had, now there's going to be two teams. And every ride or die duo is going to intentionally be split up. So they're going to be competing against each other going forward. 2 teams of 8 people. We don't know exactly how we'll have eliminations, if it'll be men's elimination, women's elimination, one person going home at a time. We just don't know the details yet. All we know is that whoever your ride or die partner was, you're now fighting against each other. Now, here's the thing. I would expect, based on past seasons, that you probably would have elimination, like a men's elimination or a women's elimination. So hopefully you don't have your ride or dies absolutely competing against each other in elimination arena to see which one of the two goes home. I hope that's not the case. But knowing TJ and all that, it certainly TJ, JT and all TJ. It certainly could be the case, but they're going to be split up into 2 teams of 8. And as winners of this mini final, Faisal and Moriah are the captains. They're going to get to pick their teams. So before we find out who's going to be on what team, let's talk a little bit about a few other things happening, a few more relationships issues. So let's start off with the fake nightclub scene. I always call it fake nightclub because I've heard there's no music. It's just a chance for everyone to get together, talk a little strategy and all that. But on to the fake nightclub. We've got Horatio apologizing to Olivia for the way he treated her after this last challenge. I'm glad to see it. Regardless of how they do in the game, I hope they keep. They played so well together, so I'm glad to see Horatio apologizing. And it seems like Olivia is accepting it more or less. She says, yeah, I can't help but forgive him. So I'm glad to see that. Meanwhile, we've got Amber talking to Chauncey. Really feeling bad, saying, you're the one person here that I knew I could trust, and I hate to, I don't have you with me. I feel for Amber. I feel like for so many seasons, she just hasn't really felt like she's part of a group, and she's always felt like a little bit of an outcast. She had her special someone with her to help her out. No more. Now they're going to be on different sides. So Amber's feeling a little melancholy about that itself. And from that, we've got deliberations for how Faisal and Moriah are going to decide who goes onto what team. we've already seen a few people give some warnings, like Johnny saying, yeah, I really think that Fessel's played the game so much more. Mariah's a newbie. He's just going to run roughshod over her. He's going to stack his team. It's going to be really, really tough. Well, we see it in the deliberations. Mariah may not be such a pushover as some people thinking, because she's fighting for a few folks. She wants Jordan on her team. She'd like to have Bananas on her team. She's got her people that she wants. Fessel, on the other hand, he wants Nelson. He wants KC. So they both are fighting for who they'd like to have in this thing. They try a few different configurations. Nothing is decided in the deliberation room. We're actually going to find out at the elimination arena who's going into what team. So we'll find out how that works. Now, before we get there, we got one more relationship issue to talk about. And this is unfortunately involving Tori and Jordan. With Jordan snuggling up, and maybe a little bit more, because we did hear there's some make-out taking place as well. But with him snuggling up to Nuris, Tori saying, look, you do whatever you want to do. She said, I just didn't want to be in there with it. She said, but even when I'm outside, there's people coming up to me and telling me that it's making them uncomfortable that y'all are so tight in here. And she said, just understand, now, do what you want to do. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. Well, it kind of blows up from there. They end up really just saying, yeah, this is, I think it's Jordan that says, this brings me back to all the fighting that we did when we weren't getting along so well. So I guess the honeymoon period's over for these two, right? Quick honeymoon period it was. Honeymoon 2, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, it's not looking good for Tori and Jordan. Jordan and Nuris, maybe a little more. We'll see how it works out. We'll see how it works out from a team selection standpoint. So let's talk about the team selection. They flip a coin, and it's determined that Faisal's going to get the first pick. Now, there's a little bit of a wrinkle thrown in, because as is to expect, if Faisal, his first pick has to be a female. Mariah's first pick will have to be a male. So they're going to flip it back and forth. So you try to have equal numbers, I don't know, equal genders. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but they do have some parameters in each of the picks that they're going to make. So Faisal picks first, and not a huge surprise, I suppose. I don't know. Casey versus Nelson maybe would be two of his top selections. But in this particular situation, Faisal has picked Casey. They ran a final before. He says, we got unfinished business. I want Casey on my side. If you're gonna pick a woman, again, he had to pick a woman. If he'd had to pick a man, I think it probably would have been Nelson. But if you have to pick a woman as he had to, Casey is the obvious choice. Such a beast. So he has picked Casey, which means her brother Kenny is going to be on Mariah's team with her. At this point, then Mariah gets to pick. She has to pick a man. Not a huge surprise here. She has picked Jordan, which means that Anissa is now going over to Faisal's side. Faisal and Anissa have been on a team together before. It didn't work out 100%, but Anissa does have a lot of experience playing the game, so we'll see where that goes. Faisal has his pick. This time he gets to pick a guy. He picks Bananas, which means Nani is with Mariah. Now, first thing I thought is, that means Casey is on Faisal's side, Nani is on Mariah's side. They're still not working together. That's got to kill them, right? Yeah, I'm sure they weren't too happy to see that. Now, even though they aren't on the same side, and I'm sure they hate that, there was talk, even in the deliberation room, that we shouldn't necessarily have everyone we want on our side and no one that we don't want on the other side. There was talk about wanting to make sure you had a few allies on both sides. So even though Nani and Casey are on different sides, it's a great chance to share some information to protect each other. When Nani's side has the power, hopefully she can protect Casey and vice versa. So on a personal level, I'm sure they don't like it. Strategic level, I'm not sure it's as big a deal as maybe some people would think. So we'll see. We don't know all the rules yet on how this is going to work going forward. But Faisal's picked Bananas, which means Nani's going over to Mariah. Mariah now picks Amber, which means that then Chauncey goes with Faisal. Faisal then finally he picks Nelson, and he had mentioned the fact that he probably figures that that Mariah was was thinking that he was going to pick Nelson, the previous pick, when he picked Bananas. And Faisal says, yeah, I knew she wanted Bananas though, so a little preemptive action. it's got to chap her just a little bit if she thinks that's why he did it as well. If she figures out that's why he did it. But it works to his benefit because Nelson is still there the next time he gets to pick a guy. So Faisal's picked Nelson, which means Norris is going over to Mariah's team. Mariah at this point picks Horatio, which means that Olivia now is going over the Faisal, which means the final duo picked. They don't deserve to be the final duo pick, but Tori and Devin are the last duo left. Devin, as always, has a few comments to make. Said, I always got picked last yet one more time. I'd want that. Devin hates Big Brother players, or at least he says so. I don't think he hates us as much as he says. Having said that, Devin's pretty good at the puzzles. I think I would be perfectly fine having Devin on my team. Doesn't matter. At this point in time, they're the last ones picked, which means automatically Faisal gets Tori, which is a strong pick, and Mariah gets Devin. Strong pick as well. For being the last team left, no one should be too upset with that particular pick. Now, as I look at these teams, Faisal has a lot of strong players. His side is definitely stacked. Mariah's team, maybe not so much. I think I heard, they were talking a little bit and said maybe some puzzle solvers over there, maybe a little more, not strategic. There's a lot of vets left in this game. So you got strategies spread out everywhere. But Faisal certainly has a lot of big old alpha males and those kind of folks. And Casey, Olivia, he's got some badass female competitors as well as himself and Nelson. So it certainly looks like Faisal maybe came out a little bit ahead. But again, it's early. We got a lot of game to play. Who knows what other twist TJ's going to throw at us? So not making any assumptions yet. But that's it, guys. No elimination this week. It was strictly leading up to the team pick. Everything's changed. We'll see. Will they come back together at some point? Or are they going to run how many more before they get to the final? Assuming we've got 6, 7 folks, 8 folks, I guess, left in the final. We could have another 8 weeks or so of getting rid of a man, a woman, something like that. I don't know. We're going to find out as we go forward. But that's it. We're down to 2 teams now. It's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, until next week, y'all have a fantastic one. I'll be back next week to cover episode 10 of the challenge. Until then, SKD143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.